Good afternoon, good evening, everybody, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us for what promises to be an impactful conversation on how youth can prepare for the post-pandemic Labour Party. I am your moderator for today. My name is Charlotte Kirby, and I'm the Vice President of Strategic Relations at Salesforce. And I am so pleased to be joined by three simply amazing speakers who are going to be sharing not only their thoughts and their advice, but actually parts of their personal journeys with you over the next 30 minutes or so, followed by your opportunity to ask us all the questions that you want the answers to. But before I introduce them, I'd just like to take a moment to frame the conversation that we're going to be having. Look, we all know this. The world is in such flux at the moment. Every time we turn on the news, every time we open up our social media, and even for some of us, every time you walk out of your front door, you've been bombarded with negativity, which quite frankly, sometimes can be horrifying and extremely scary. From climate concerns, from racial social injustice, and of course inequality, to then COVID-19. And with regard to COVID-19, the tragic personal effects of this disease on so many of us and our families personally, the catastrophic toll that it's taking on communities still around the world, and the devastating impacts on economies, on businesses, on education, your education, my child's education, and of course, opportunities for the future. But in spite of this, it's not all bad news. And that's what we're going to hear about today. Indeed, I personally have been so heartened by the way that people have really come together in ways not often seen. And actually now really are responding to some of the spotlights that COVID has shone on those inequalities, on the access to education for all, to the needs for a new digital infrastructure, and indeed on the need to find new ways of working and creating impact. And it's that I'm really excited that our speakers are going to focus on today. So let's dive in. I'm going to ask each one of these amazing speakers to introduce themselves and just to say a few words around why this subject is so important to them. So we'll start with Rob Acke. Rob, CEO of Salesforce.org. Please, we'd love your introduction.
Well, thank you, Charlotte. It's an honor to be here with everybody here today. My name is Rob Acke. I'm the CEO for Salesforce.org. And this topic is really important because, first of all, the youth of today, meaning you are our future. But secondly, there's a lot of opportunities out there, but the market is more dynamic. It's more fluid than ever. It creates a lot of anxiety. But as a business leader, I'm telling you, like, there are so many opportunities that new jobs are being created, and we need to hire for them. But also, thirdly, I personally was once filled with uncertainty and anxiety as I navigated my career path. But I'm here to tell you it's going to be okay because we can do this together.
Two things from that. First of all, the acknowledgement that the youth of today are actually our future. And I love the fact that we've started with that comment, we're going to do this together. So I'd love to now introduce Patricia Feliciano from the Office of the CEO at Salesforce.org.
Hi, everyone. My name is Patricia Feliciano, and I'm Rob Acke's executive assistant. It's truly an honor and a privilege for me to be here today. And this topic is so important because this new and younger generation of people have the ability and power to shape the world and be the change makers in our communities. And we have to empower them and help them to always remember that. And also, the world around us is changing at a rapid pace, and it's causing many uncertainties like no other time in history. And there's so much pressure to succeed in the workforce, especially for young people. So it's even more important to instill hope and support to them at this time.
Thank you, Patricia. And you know what? You said one word that I love in this context of conversation, and that's empower. And finally, Eleanor Braxton-Taylor, who is project manager for the nonprofit industry trends here at Salesforce.org. Eleanor.
Hi, Charlotte. Thank you. It's such a great privilege to be here today. Speaking for myself personally, I find this to be just kind of an area of passion because it's something that I have navigated and I'm still navigating myself, being, the youth in the workforce. Just being a young person in like this current gig economy, it's a completely different environment than what the generations before us had to navigate. I find that there's this heavy, almost unspoken pressure to pursue a career in tech. And it leaves a lot of us kind of with this goal that we're unsure or feel that we're unable to pursue. So I kind of wanted to be here today to be a voice to show you that it's an attainable path.
What an amazing introduction. And again, really strong words. And that is why I wanted these incredible people to be introducing themselves, because they say it so much better than I possibly could. So look, let's dive into that conversation. Rob, I'm going to come to you first. As both a business leader, but also a leader in driving social good, can you outline what you see as the major impacts of COVID on today's labour market globally?
Yeah, I think, first of all, things that we all know, COVID's highlighted the precarious nature of the job market, and we saw many business and industries suffer greatly. We saw a lack of funding to support employees. There was also an immediate need for governments to jump in with social care. So as a result, we're seeing a few transitional trends, and I'll talk about those first and then how we can address them. First, we know many jobs were lost. Globally, 52% of the jobs in the flexible work industry were lost, and these include hospitality, restaurants, service. And I know many of the people in the audience, you've been directly affected by this. But secondly, our aspirations for equality globally were hurt. As an example, the downturn and the disruption for COVID for women and people of color were dramatically affected. As an example, women were 1.8 times more likely to leave the workforce over the past 12 months, which really, when you think about it, it's actually profoundly disturbing. We could lose 10 years of gender equality in just 10 months. And thirdly, the supply curve, and this is where the opportunity really lies. The supply curve of the workforce and the demand change for employers, they're out of sync right now. I mentioned already that people are losing their jobs, but at the same time, more new jobs are being created in new industries that in many cases can provide higher wages than jobs that are being eliminated. As an example, like 80 million jobs are going to be eliminated or automated by 2025, but 95 million new jobs are getting created through new technologies and then shifting demands. So getting the job market back on track to recover the global economy is going to require a shift in the way that we approach labor. And just for my company as an example, just being one of many, at Salesforce, we predict that these trends are going to change the way that we look at labor. We predict that we're going to add 4.2 million new jobs through our ecosystem in our wider economy, which means we'll need to find faster and more efficient ways of preparing young people and reskilling. We're going to lean in and offer more flexible work hours, and we're breaking down geographic barriers to allow people to work remotely. And the net effect is it's going to provide us with a huge opportunity to democratize access to opportunity.
Well, some of those stats, at the beginning sounded terrible news, but 90 million plus jobs are going to be created. That is great news, and we're not hearing about that out in the open conversations. So incredibly positive news. We heard about Salesforce adding jobs, and I assume that just as we are adding jobs, as we're harnessing the needs of the post-pandemic economy, many other organizations will continue to do so. So that 90 million will actually continue to grow. But what does this mean for young people? How can they harness the opportunities that you're referring to as they both prepare to enter the workforce for the very first time, but also continue to build on their careers?
Yeah, I think the thing is disruption to education, to employment, services, social support. It's impacted 1.2 billion young people. So you've had to, in this audience, adapt quickly to change and embrace uncertainty. And you're now facing a job market that looks entirely different than it looked last year. And it's changed dramatically. But I think the key thing is that learning doesn't end with graduation. And as we move forward, reskilling, upskilling are going to become increasingly important. Lifelong learning mindset is really going to requires us to continuously build skills, whether it's through formal courses or online training or on the job learning. We have tools for that we've created just for our own ecosystem, as I referenced, like those 4.2 million jobs over the next 4 years, like through resources like Trailhead. But you also may be familiar with LinkedIn Learning. But there's also, we've seen universities step in as well and change the way that they're serving people like Arizona State, Southern New Hampshire University here in the United States. They're changing the landscape of education and making it much more accessible. So I think the key thing, just to summarize, really is that micro-credentialing and certifications are going to become increasingly important, and businesses are leaning in, and they need to help build that content.
So the word we're hearing here is learn. Learning, and put yourself on a lifelong learning journey.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rob. Elena, I'd love to bring you into the conversation at this point. You've heard what Rob's just said. As a relatively new entrant into the workplace, and your route into that workplace was via internships, could you please share a little of your journey and your experiences with the audience?
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with Rob that learning doesn't end with just graduation. Speaking for myself, like, access to traditional education doesn't look the same for everyone. I myself am a Europe graduate, and I've found throughout my time with Europe and now Salesforce that self-learning is a really vital piece to growing, not even just your current role, but anything else that you might want to pursue in the future. I'd say working from home requires a certain level of self-sufficiency, but I've been able to use programs like Trailhead to target specific areas of interest and just kind of, level up and upskill. And there's also a certain amount of self-learning that you can only gain from hands-on experience, and that's why I'm so vocal about advocating for programs like Europe, where students get the chance to put their work to the test in tech internships. You can learn as much as you want through online courses, but real-world experience is always going to be the best teacher.
And Europe is such an incredible organization. Now, Elena, Rob also mentioned the need to adapt quickly. That can sometimes be quite scary, especially for somebody right at the beginning of their career. Can you tell us how you've been managing that need to be agile?
Yeah, and I mean, you're right. It can be really scary. I think when you're trying to adapt to new environments, it's important to find the balance, like I mentioned before, between being self-sufficient, but also being able to rely and trust on the resources that you have around you. I didn't get to where I am, solely on my own. I've had a lot of guidance from mentors, managers, student services. I've learned that it's okay to have a certain amount of vulnerability in order to learn and adapt to new changes.
And, I love the fact that you mentioned the word mentor. Mentorships are so important, actually, both for the mentor and the mentee.
Yeah.
Thank you, Eleanor. Patricia, I personally have been so inspired by your journey into the workplace and how you've adapted to change and never lost focus on what's important to you. Could you share just a little bit of that with the audience?
Yeah, thank you for asking, Charlotte. And to be very honest, I'll admit, I had a really hard time finding a steady job after graduating from college with my business degree. And there was a point where I worked a few different jobs at once. I worked in a customer service role at a small startup on the weekdays and tutored middle and high school students in the evenings, and worked at a retail store selling watches on the weekends. And I did that for a while. But then one day I got recruited to work in a sales role at a financial advising company. And I thought that this was going to be my game-changing break in life and my first real career job. But I realized almost immediately after I started working there that I didn't truly believe in what they were selling and how they went about it and what they stood for. And I got so unhappy with what I was doing that I ended up leaving the job. And so this was a very difficult point in my life, and I couldn't find a job. And when I did get an interview, it led nowhere. And I'd sent out countless applications and not hear back. And I became really depressed, feeling entirely lost and hopeless. And I was also unsure of what I was going to do. So I was forced to spend a lot of time soul searching and finally asked myself that if it wasn't for money and title, what would make me happy? And I realized that I'd always loved makeup because of how it helped me to find confidence in myself. And I wanted to help others feel better about themselves too. So I started applying to work at a department store in San Francisco. And lo and behold, I got the job, and I found myself back in retail again as a sales associate, as a cosmetic counter working as a makeup artist. So although the commute took an hour and 45 minutes each way from my small hometown to the city, I looked at it like it was an adventure, and my spirit came back, and I loved what I was doing. And as I worked with more people, I found more confidence in myself and was able to better my people skills. And it was through this job that I met someone incredible and special who changed the course of my life. And she was a customer that I helped one day. And she said that I had given her the best customer service ever and asked me if I'd like to join her team. And she handed me her business card, told me to send her my resume, and that we'd talk. And little did I know, I had met Elizabeth Pinkham, who's the Executive Vice President of Global Real Estate at Salesforce and one of the highest level executives in the company. And by the grace of God, with that one interaction, I went from working at a small makeup counter to then working at the front desk of the Salesforce headquarters as a receptionist. And I loved my job. And I came to work every day, giving it my all and always putting my best foot forward. Each and every day, I put my heart and my soul into caring for and serving each one of our guests and employees. And that dedicated work ethic and consistently positive attitude I live by has since helped me to move up rather quickly within Salesforce. I met some amazing people who have helped me along the way, including our Chief Philanthropy Officer, Ebony Beckwith, who is another very powerful executive within the company, who then recommended me to meet Rob and put me up for this role. And Rob gave me the opportunity of a lifetime to work for him because he liked my attitude, grit, and work ethic and determination. And it was through these relationships and by being open to new roles and challenges that I got to where I'm at today as a member of Rob's team. And yes, there were some challenges along the way, but I'm working my dream job now for a boss I love working for at a company dedicated to improving the state of the world and where I find the work I'm doing has meaning and value and purpose.
Every time I hear you tell that story, Patricia, it's fantastic. And I think that, first of all, thank you so much for sharing some very personal information there. But there's so much for the audience to learn from your experiences. That, focus, don't give up, understand what your passion is. And actually, if you have confidence in yourself, then opportunity comes in so many guises. Harness the opportunity when you find it. Don't let yourself be in yourself's way. And then just moving slightly on to the next stage of your career. This conversation is about youth, but there are also a lot of the audience that are in their career at the moment and in various stages. And change occurs for us all throughout our careers. As you've been building your career within Salesforce, and we did hear from Rob and we've heard from Eleanor the importance of the learning path. What skills have you been learning and what tools have you been using and what advice can you give for others that are starting to think about their own personal development and learning journeys?
So Charlotte, I think that's a great question. And I think that as much as hard skills are important to any career or anything that you do, it's something that you can pick up and learn along the way and develop as long as you really apply yourself to it and put in the work and stay dedicated to it day in and day out. And you can hone in on your skill set over time and build experience and get better at what you're doing the more you do it. It's about repetition and commitment and allowing yourself to learn from failures too. As a matter of fact, it's the failures in life that force you to grow. So it's important to not be afraid of making mistakes and taking them as learning experiences to make you better. But aside from just working on your hard skills, I think even more important than that are your soft skills. And that's your attitude, your work ethic, your manners, your interpersonal skills, and how you come across and communicate with others. And those are things beyond what you can just learn from a textbook. It's what you have to work on and develop when you deal with people, whether they're easy to deal with or hard to deal with. And every person that comes into your life, they're meant to help you grow and develop your character. And when you have the right attitude and you're optimistic and positive, people naturally gravitate towards you. And fundamentally, it's important to live life with integrity and to truly learn to love your neighbor and to treat others how you want to be treated. And when you get to know people and you care for them and serve others, they'll naturally want to help you and treat you with kindness in return. And you just never know who you might meet or what doors someone might even be able to open up for you. So it's important to treat all people with respect and dignity and kindness and be authentic about it. And when you combine both hard and soft skills together and you're determined to do the best you possibly can and you do put in the work, it will be hard for you to go unnoticed. and opportunities will open up in ways that you can't imagine. And when those opportunities do come, just take it and run with it and make the very best of it. Even if it may not have been what you thought you'd be doing, try it and work your hardest, because it will all take you somewhere. And you might surprise yourself that it's actually better than what you even imagined.
What an absolutely fantastic answer that really is. There are so many keywords that I've just heard in that. And from somebody that has been in the workplace for slightly longer than Patricia, it resonates so much. Treat people the way that you want to be treated in your career. Don't take anybody for granted.
Yeah.
And, use your passion to really leverage yourself on your journey, because that's what other people see in you. My next question was for Rob. I am slightly concerned because we seem to have lost him from the camera. So Rob, can you hear us?
Yes. Can you hear me?
We can, we just can't see you at the moment. So Rob,
I just got this automatic upgrade thing on our computer, which is forced by the company. So my apologies, it probably froze.
Okay, I am getting a moderator saying that they can still see you. So I apologize for that. Rob, as we've heard these individual stories from Patricia and Elena, which have been so inspiring, I'm curious to know how you think businesses need to support young people as they strive to build their post-COVID careers.
Yeah, I mean, employers need workers with in-demand skills, and companies have a vested interest in ensuring that they can hire you. And the best way to help people is to provide opportunities for employees or potential employees to learn those skills. So education credits, memberships to learning platforms, mentorship, networking programs. And as the market continues to change post-COVID, businesses have an increased responsibility to help employees adapt and build their careers. And businesses are also partnering with nonprofits who are leading by example through their training programs. I think of like YMCA runs worldwide programs on employment-related issues, providing quality education, vocational training. Girl Scouts offers leadership development programs that enhance leadership skills, personal growth. Even Malala Fund, as an example, uses technology to deliver education to girls in countries where girls are most likely to be denied the chance to attend school.
And I really do think it's so fantastic. Businesses are working with many of the organizations actually that are involved in this summit. And I'm really looking forward to as we get to more grips with the post-pandemic world. So we did hear from you earlier that you do believe that business is going to change, that this concept of work from anywhere, remote working, which then also enables more global opportunities. What does this mean in terms of soft skills that you're looking for from the business perspective, from somebody that just entering the job market? Because after all, that's an incredibly different environment to the traditional 9 to 5, 5 days in a week. And of course, sometimes it sounds great, yay, working from home. But what does that actually really look like for an employee?
Yeah, I want to go back to something I said very earlier too, just to double down on the last question. I'll answer that. But I think the thing is, when I mentioned we can do this together and there is hope, is that businesses do have a vested interest in making sure that they're growing. There's a lot of growing industries, and they're hiring for just incredible, and looking for incredible talent. So they're investing in making sure that you're successful and that we can reskill. But in terms of kind of like the soft skills, we also need to answer your question, which is very specific around, we need to create an environment that allows people to flourish. So what's really changed with COVID is like things like providing technology so employees can stay connected, or whether that's devices or Wi-Fi, something that simple, or investing in tools and opportunity for virtual networking and collaboration, or investing in learning platforms and training to onboard new employees, and also help existing employees to continue to build in-demand skills. I mean, oftentimes I see in the workforce, just within Salesforce, you might have an existing employee, but the role and the nature of the job has changed with emerging technologies, and we have to invest in new skills, even for existing employees and existing roles.
Thank you. It also means a shift in dynamic with the relationships between the employer and the employee. There now needs to be much stronger element of trust between parties, and that's different to before. That can be incredibly empowering, but it can also be slightly overpowering to especially to a new employee. So Elena, what's your experiences of this new working norm, and what were the pitfalls that you feel that young people should be aware of when entering this style of working?
I'd say that, you know, there's a lot of different avenues now to pursue, or a lot of like non-traditional avenues that you can choose to pursue a career in tech. I chose to go via Year Up. I think something to be mindful of, though, is that for a lot of people my age, working in tech and working from home is still a privilege. I chose to drop everything to join Year Up. It was a bit of a rocky path. There were times where I was on the brink of homelessness. It was very hard to get to where I am. But, you know, at the end, you know, it's worth it. It's still a privilege. I think another thing to keep in mind is that imposter syndrome is very real. That was something that I dealt with a lot during my internship, and even more so when I got converted into my first contract. One of the biggest things that held me back during my internship was that I was afraid to ask questions. I didn't want to seem uninformed, but the only way to get answers is to ask for them. So I think it's, you know, it's important to be patient with yourself as we navigate, you know, this new working environment.
I think that's a great piece of advice. Don't be afraid to ask the questions. There is no wrong question. And what do you think the most important attributes and skills needed to set up a person for success on their first steps of their lifelong journey are?
Something that I believe Patricia brought up earlier is, you know, there's hard skills, but there's also soft skills that you develop over time. Just, you know, it's not the same working virtually as it is, you know, working in the actual office. But something that doesn't change either way is bringing your authentic self, you know, every day. One of the things that really led me towards interning at Salesforce was I had one of an employees judging our elevator pitch competition during my time at Year Up, and he pulled me aside. I didn't win. He pulled me aside and he said, I really like your attitude. I think you'd be a good fit here. And it didn't occur to me that you can still be yourself and have a successful career. And that connection really just kind of, it just struck me that I can be myself and actually succeed. I'd say empowerment comes from succeeding while being your authentic self. Something that I loved about Patricia's story was, you know, her tenacity and her positive attitude. I think having the right mindset is just so vital to staying focused and keeping a level head. Yeah, being my authentic self really led me to a work environment where I feel like I can truly, you know, be myself. You have to trust the process, but, you know, more importantly, you have to trust yourself.
Again, you know, such incredible advice for all of our audience. Patricia, as you continue to build on your journey and the successes that you've been seeing, how do you think about developing your own career as you look to move upwards in business?
Well, I really want to encourage everyone here to believe that you can do anything that you put your mind, your heart, and your soul into accomplishing. And even when you may not know what you want to do or what your path should be, I think that the key to success is not about making a master plan and having to follow your blueprint exactly as you plan it, because sometimes life can just throw those plans out the door entirely. But it's about finding joy and love in everything that you do and being the best version of yourself you can be. It's about putting your best foot forward and working hard, having determination and grit, and then pushing through your struggles. And when opportunities open up, don't be afraid to take them, even if it may sound different than what you envision in your plan, because you never know where it might take you. For me, I would have never thought that from working at a small makeup counter, that someday it would bring me to working in the office of the CEO of Salesforce.org, and that I have the opportunity to share the same stage as him today and be given a voice to speak to a global audience of young people around the world, sharing my story. And I realized that success is not about the job title you have or about how much money that you make or how much better you're doing than your peers. It's about living life with integrity and happiness and doing things for the right reasons. And things will open up. They just do. And when an opportunity comes to you, go for it. It all works itself out eventually. You'll look back one day and realize that all the twists and turns that life led you through unexpectedly, it had to happen that way. to help you discover and become who you are. And the difficulties and struggles are what shapes you and humbles you and yet strengthens you. And the journey is exciting. So make sure you lift yourselves up and lift each other up, because an even brighter future is coming. And it's up to us to live it to the fullest. And one day you'll realize that your unique life story was meant to inspire others as well.
So much nodding from the rest of us here for that. Lift yourselves up, lift others up, and go for it. Wow, that's best advice of the day. My last question goes to Rob. Rob, you're the parent to 3 amazing kids. As you think about their futures and their journey into the workplace of the future, what thoughts do you want to leave them and everybody on this call today with?
Well, first of all, we've heard from Elena and Patricia on the attributes and skills that are needed, and I fully agree. And wow, just so powerful just to even hear. I know these stories, but they're just incredible. But also, I want to add that young people have an opportunity that I and many people in my generation did not have, and it's the opportunity of not having to choose between a career of being able to contribute to improving the state of the world and doing that. You can do both now. You can work for a business that allows you to improve the state of the world too. And today, as you've heard from Elena and Patricia, you can do both. You can choose a work-life journey that enables you to follow your passions, solve some of the challenges mentioned in the introduction. And I've been so proud, even just throughout my career and throughout the pandemic, that our work's allowed us to contribute to COVID relief and global vaccination programs through COVAX. And companies now encourage their employees to embrace the stakeholder economy, and by doing so, make the world a better place for us all. And by embracing this choice, this opportunity, it will enhance all that you do and sharpen those skills and attributes that you've heard about from Elena, Patricia, and make your workplace journey more meaningful. And I guarantee you much more successful. And another thing I just want to double down on is really what both Patricia and Elena so eloquently presented, which is that, yes, you need skills. They help you get in the door. They get you in the door and on the first floor. But to get from the first floor to the second and third floor, you need to be your authentic self, as Elena and Patricia so eloquently said. Bring your best every day, have a high EQ, and work well and collaborate with others. Skills will get you in the door, but being your authentic self will get you, rise you up through the floors of the building, and to use an analogy. And so I just want to thank you and encourage you on your journey.
Thank you so much. And, thank you so much for the thoughtful answers, but also sharing so much of your personal journeys with us. I hope that everybody in the audience is actually feeling as inspired as I am right now. But it is the audience's opportunity. We do have some questions. So the first question that I'm actually going to ask is, and Patricia, I actually want this to come to you first. So how can girls and women prepare to ensure that the statistics of the widening gender gap that we heard about from Rob at the beginning, that I do think that there was a few gasp emojis from, how do you believe that we can look to start to reverse that gap?
Sorry, I had to go off mute. But I think that it's important that that women feel empowered. That it's not that this is not just a man's place to be at. It's not whatever ethnicity that you're at, that you are. It's about being you and being the best self you can be. And as women, we need to empower each other to be able to stand up and to lift each other up, and to not be afraid to be who we are, like Elena said. And I'd like to also defer the question to Elena as well, and what she might have to say about it as well.
Sorry, Anna, I was just going to say, lift each other up. Patricia, perfect. Elena, how do you feel about that question?
I completely agree with Patricia. I think it's really important to look for mentors and role models. Speaking for myself, My manager, Chloe Morel, has been such a vital piece of my growth at Salesforce. I think another thing is to keep in mind, I had brought up earlier that there are non-traditional avenues to get, your foot in the door when it comes to working in tech. Europe is a great program. There's, I'm totally blanking on the name, but it's for high school intern. But there's a lot of non-traditional avenues that you can take for people, for young women especially, who are underrepresented in the tech industry. And just because it's a non-traditional avenue, I don't think you should let that hinder you or stop you from pursuing your goals.
One great question from the audience, which actually, Eleanor, how can we, as we get more and more overloaded with the day, especially when you're just starting out, how do you manage that? How do you manage that work-life balance?
Yeah, it's a bit daunting at first because you want to hit the ground running. You want to, especially as a newcomer, you want to go full throttle and show people that you're up to the task. One of my favorite things about Salesforce is that they really focus on like employee and mindfulness, ensure that you're at your best so that you can perform well. So if I need to block out time in my calendar so I can do my yoga and meditation, so far, no one has had a problem with it. And I think just making sure that you're grounded so that you can bring yourself fully to work every day is really important.
Great. And question for Rob. Technology is transforming industries. In the chat, we've had AI specifically mentioned. What type of technical skills and what type of learning skills do you think is going to be important and that people should really concentrate on in terms of addressing the changes and shifts in technology?
Yeah, I mean, just, to point a level of optimism in this, and why I started out with those stats at the beginning, it's really interesting. AI is predicted to eliminate 1.8 million jobs, but at the same time, it's creating 2.3 million new jobs. So if you think about that, technology is transforming industry, and basic digital skills like the ability to communicate digitally, whether it's Slack or Zoom, to use common software, but also social media experience. But there's also industry-specific software, and if you want to pursue a career in marketing, tools for search engine optimization or marketing analytics are important. Or marketing and engagement tools, or if you're in healthcare, you need to know how to do sonography. 60% of employees say that their needs for advanced skills like specialist software or coding are likely to increase in the next 5 years. I did notice a question on the chat string. I think that the interesting is there is an overwhelming plethora of channels and opportunities, and we in the business community, in partnership with the universities and the education community, as well as in partnership with nonprofits, need to really start to streamline these channels. Going back to something in the last question that Elenas said is like, I had a conversation with Ariana Huffington this week, and one of the big concerns is like, this can seem very overwhelming, but really you will find your journey. And I really encourage people, it's really important that you manage your energy. This can feel overwhelming. So, consume what you can consume. And learn what you can, but you don't need to learn it all at once and try and swallow all of this information at once. Manage your energy while you're going through this experience, and really to make sure that you center yourselves, because there is a lot to learn. The world is evolving, it's changing, it's fluid, but marketing, AI, there's so many dimensions you can go down to. Find your interest, and then find the technologies that are empowering people with skills to guide you on the things that interest you.
Great advice. Find what you're passionate about. This sort of kind of brings us to the next audience question, which is, being a teen, we're pressured to know what we want to do. At the age of 16, you're expected to know what your career is going to be, and expected to know that you're going to become a lawyer or you're going to become an accountant. What is your advice about what people should be thinking about when they're still in their teens about their careers? I'm going to actually, Rob, I'm going to ask you that one again, because I know that this is something that you've been asked for before.
Yeah. First of all, it's a very relatable problem. I went through this myself. Patricia's journey, when she talked about the anxiety, the despair, I remember going through that myself. I really did not know what I want to do. The thing I'm here to tell you, and I really didn't, from all through my 20s, Even in my early 30s, I was still trying to figure out, what am I going to do? And it's a very relatable problem. And here's the thing, you don't necessarily have to know that. And I think we're conditioned in society to train people to know whether they want to be a doctor or a lawyer or what they want to be. By the time, they're 18, that's just not the way the world works. And Patricia eloquently stated it too, like, you don't have to know, but you will find many avenues present themselves to you, and you will go down some of those avenues, like Patricia exemplified. She worked in a financial services firm. She decided that wasn't for her. And that was more tied to the values and ethics of that organization. But at the end of the day, so she had to kind of then go try something else again. And eventually many roads will open to you. And the way those roads open is just ensure that you have the skills and to get yourself in the door. And you're going to try things, and that's okay. And I really think that you don't have to have an answer. And the work economy has become much more fluid. And what you start out doing, that whole industry can shift dramatically and end up becoming something completely different over a matter of years. And so the reality is like, do not put that pressure on yourself, like I did, and because it's okay. The world, there are so many new opportunities opening up. Here's a really interesting statistic that'll ground you in it. By the year 2030, 80% of the jobs that kids are going to school for today, they don't even exist yet. So how can you possibly know exactly what you want to do? So there's so many opportunities that are going to open up. And just, I think the thing is what is challenging today more than ever is it's fluid, but be okay with that.
Great advice. And wow, kids going to school, jobs haven't been invented yet. Guess what? It's your opportunity to actually find what you're passionate about and invent the job for yourself. Brilliant. Last question, unfortunately, and I'm actually going to ask this one for Elena. Elena, one of the questions has been very much around recommending where people should go for jobs first. Where should they start to look for their first step on their career? As an intern, could you just say a little bit about what your experience of an internship program was and why you found that was a great opportunity to get that first foot onto the career ladder?
I'll start by just kind of a disclaimer. I had a very non-traditional internship experience. I got maybe a month and a half in the office before, everything shifted and went virtual. So it was, a lot of the adapting that we had honed in on earlier. But, virtual or in person, I think the most important thing you can do is just network, get a sense of what's out there, who does what. That's something else that I really like about the Salesforce environment is that if you want to set up just an informational interview or a casual coffee date just to, pick someone's brain. No one ever said no to me as an intern. So, it kind of goes back to not being afraid to ask questions. If you want to know, ask someone. Odds are they're not going to turn you down. Make sure you're as prepared as possible. LinkedIn is really important. So make sure you have a good LinkedIn profile. If you are looking for jobs, there's an option to say that you are, seeking a career. There's a lot of things you can do.
Wonderful. Rob, Patricia, Elena, thank you so much for joining this conversation today. I hope that you in the audience have enjoyed it as much as I have. I've certainly been inspired from it, and some of the advice, I really do wish that when I was starting out in my career, I had had some of that advice. So thank you so much for being open and for sharing. I look forward to any questions that you would like to share with us through other mediums and continue this conversation. And I wish you all to have the most amazing Global Youth Summit and a great experience over the next few days. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Charlotte.
Thank you so much.